Good morning, everyone. I think everyone is late and blocked in traffic. So what we're going to do is to begin the lectures. Otherwise, the whole day will be delayed. So our first speaker this morning from Portugal is José Baganha.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to start by thanking the organization of this seminar, Alejandro and all the staff. It's a great pleasure to be here in this stimulating city of Madrid and have the possibility to share with you some of my works. Well, today I'm going to show you 4 single-family houses and one complex, residential complex for doctors in retirement, and all these works are located in Alentejo. Alentejo is a province of the southern Portugal, neighbor to the Spanish Extremadura, that's it. So I'll begin by saying a few words about the theme of the presentation, which is tradition and contemporaneity. Well, 2 words that have been seen as apparently opposite concepts. However, nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, in today's context of uncontrolled, disorientated globalization, a time of fundamentalisms of all stripes and the loss of the humanistic values that have characterized and guided peoples and the more culturally developed nations for centuries, I would say it is imperative and urgent that we find antidotes for the despersonalization that this reality so drastically causes us. As a very well-known journalist of my country said just a few days ago, the new figure of the citizen is of the citizen that consumes, not the one of the citizen that chooses his liberty. Well, in all of mankind's activities in industry, trade, arts, culture in general, services, even in agriculture, the primacy of money has come to supplant that of human beings as the center of all things, as the ultimate or even sole objective. And the civitas are sucked into this mercantilist vortex, which remind us of the monsters of which the classic antiquity so well represented. In this context, tradition, or an examination of traditions from a new perspective or focus, without preconceptions, is of the utmost pertinence and timeliness. In architectural work, in making city, as in many other activities, the benefits we can achieve from learning about traditional solutions and values is very significant. The concept of tradition contains innovation within it, in the form of an evolutionary process that, while preserving the archetype, increases the value of the result by adjusting and adapting these sources of information and wisdom to the ways of life and the circumstances of a given era, constantly evolving, which engages us in a lively and inexorable process. A dead tradition is no tradition at all, but rather a simple manifestation of nostalgia or memory. Likewise, in the buildings we construct, in the cities we make every day, we can help preserve local and regional identities if we pay attention to existing traditions, if we make an effort to understand the places and the people and their culture, instead of pursuing other possibly more dramatic but profoundly devastating goals. Tradition and contemporaneity are in the end inseparable, complementary concepts. One cannot exist without the other. In architectural work today, the study of traditional forms and processes is imperative. It is no longer just a question of taste or stylistic preferences. It is because studying tradition and applying the knowledge we gather from it is the only responsible approach to take, from an ethical, economic, and social point of view, if we wish to contribute toward a more sustainable world in which mankind can re-encounter a balance with nature and thus live in a new world filled with peace and harmony. So, having said that, and well, my friends Javier Cenicachalaya and Alejandro Garcia Hermida asked me to present you some of my works in 20 minutes. I decided to choose a specific region, as I told you in the beginning. Among other possibilities, I decided to choose the province of Alentejo. It's a beautiful region, very unique in its character, that still preserves its authenticity. And, well, instead of showing you maps, locations, I'll offer you a series of images, pictures and drawings that I made during the last years, traveling through this region and its beautiful towns and cities, in order to present you a cultural context instead of maps, a mental frame, if you want, of the places where the works are located. So previously we are going to see some images of the Alentejo region. Beautiful cities and towns, landscape that we don't get to love at the first sight, but we learn to love. Of course, in this process of analysis, we had to go deep in the models, trying to understand what is that makes these models, what is that makes this beautiful and so simple architecture, vernacular architecture. Analyzing also the relationships between the empty space and the buildings, the public space and the buildings, what is that is more common. And drawing and drawing and drawing, for me it's the best way to learn about the place, it's to go there and draw. And of course we reach some conclusions, we get to identify some models, some archetypes from which we start to do our work. And all the elements of composition, it's very important. You must understand what makes that architecture. So you draw everything. You draw chimneys, you draw details, you draw everything that can contribute to characterize this type of architecture. Windows, doors, details, the ways of building, it's very important, traditional systems, the way as they still do today, the tapia, or a roof in wood, the vaults, or a window made with adobe, the color, which is fantastic in Alentejo, the lime, which with the strong light that characterizes this region makes astonishing effects. And also the other things which are present in this culture, like the folk manifestations, everything that can contribute to make this mental frame, this image of the place, the ways of the conviviality. It's a people that still gets together in the streets and in the piazzas. They still go to church, as you see. This man here is a shepherd that worked in a finca. It was of my family, my wife's family. He's here with my nephew Francisco, which is now studying economics in London. This man taught me a great lesson, because when I met him 32 years ago, more or less, my wife presented me to him, and he asked me, "What is that you do? What do you do for a living?" And I told him, "Well, I'm an architect." He is an alphabet. He's an excellent man, but he doesn't know how to write. So he looked at me. He didn't know what an architect was 32 years ago. And I explained him, "Well, I draw houses." And he was still more astonished, because he didn't understand what for is that. But we need a guy to make drawings of our houses, because they build their houses without drawings. Well, it was a great lesson for me. So you see, all this contributes to characterize the region where the works you'll see now are located. I'll start by a house in Melides, near Grândola. Monte is more or less the same of Cortijo. It's almost one ground floor houses, and sometimes with a small elevation, upper floor elevation. All of this comes from the analysis I previously showed you in very briefly images. So the elements you see, the chimneys, the tiles, the materials, everything is a fruit of that analysis. And of course, well, you can do perfectly contemporary spaces. It's a place where you can live in our today's standards with comfort. This is another house in very near Badajoz, near Elvas. Also a cortijo. It has a basement, which is a cellar, because they produce a very good wine in this finca. Here it is. Again, the elements you saw in the analysis, they are all present here. The white surfaces with very tiny finished windows and doors, as the heat here is quite terrible. And you see in the interior space the use of the ways of building, the use of the materials, can give place to a very comfortable space. And here on the right you see the cellar. Another finca, which is in Alvito, a beautiful town of the southern Alentejo. It forms two parts, one for the bedrooms, other for the living room and kitchen, linked by a tiny corridor, and in the middle a sort of patio, open patio. Again, the color you saw previously, the ochre, the yellow ochre. And the magnificent vaults we made with local craftsmen that still work here. We find people that knows how to do these things. It's not so difficult. They are living yet. And the tiles and everything you see here is made locally. Another one, which is in Montemoro Novo, very near Évora. It's a very recent one, this one. Again, the elements of the vernacular architecture always present. Interiors, again, the baldosas, the azulejos, they are all made with traditional processes. And finally, this sort of equipment of residential for doctors, retired doctors in Sines, which is an important port in the coast, in the Atlantic coast. The red building existed before, but it was completely destroyed, and we managed to rebuild it. It was a very difficult process because the architects in the municipality didn't want us to reconstruct it. They wanted something new, but we managed to make it exactly as it was. And in this red building, there are the social, the rooms, the restaurant, etc. And then there is another body, another building behind, which is the white one, where are the rooms located. And they are linked by this sort of bridge you saw there, because we had to keep a path which is already used by people here, so we didn't want to cut that possibility. And also here we tried to get elements, to incorporate elements of the local tradition. You see some windows with musharrabia, and well, the red building is an 18th century building, so you see it's not vernacular. But well, we use also local materials, cement tiles, wood, and the white building they are in fact two buildings, and they are disposed in order to make an illusion of an Alentejo street, and then covered by glass, and that's it. Thank you very much.